what it do, YouTube? We are back. We are back, and it's officially football week for the Colts. I know the Thursday night football game's probably playing while you guys watching, but I mean, it's probably going to get ugly soon. We're knocking on wood, hoping the Packers can get it done. But we got the Eagles versus the Colts preview. Should be an exciting week. I got my guy Landon with me, and I got a co-host, Jason Snyder. How you doing tonight, Jason?
I'm doing great. How are you? Thanks for having me.
How we doing, Landon, down there at the bottom?
Oh shoot, man! I'm just living the dream, brother. Living the
Just
dream.
living the dream. It's gonna be a good show tonight. So we're gonna go ahead and hop into the preview. First things first, we got to talk about the recent signings the Eagles just did. They acquired Ndamukong Suh and who was the other guy, Jason? I forget.
It's Linval Joseph, formerly of the
Yes,
Vikings and the Chargers most recently.
yes. How
Yep.
you feeling about those moves right there? We're gonna go to you first.
Well, I can tell you, as an Eagles fan, that's exactly what the doctor ordered for them right now. Their star stud draft pick that they took in the first round, Jordan Davis, he's filling a role for them as a nose tackle. They're trying to run much more multiple fronts. Their base is a 5-2 right now, and they need somebody in the middle to eat up uh, blockers, which is what Jordan Davis's role was. He went out on IR 2 weeks ago, and you could see anybody that watched that Monday night game against Washington just saw that they got eaten alive in the run game. And coming up on their schedule, not only do they have Jonathan Taylor, they've got Derrick Henry waiting for them. They've got Aaron
Mhm.
Jones of the Packers. They've got some star running backs that they're going to go up against. And if they didn't shore up the middle of that front, they were going to get eaten alive. So Howie Roseman went out and got not only one, but two guys that were, on the street. But they've got Pro Bowl level talent. They're just at the back end of their career. And that's definitely what they're going to be brought in to do. Now, Sue was just brought in this afternoon. So given that it's Thursday now, I don't know what kind of impact he's going to have on this coming game. Joseph was a little earlier in the week, and they say he's in pretty good shape, so he may actually be able to play and fill a role. But I would be dubious that Sue does much in Sunday's game, given that it's, like I said, it's Thursday, and he just signed with the team. So we'll see.
Yeah, Landon, we're gonna go to you.
Yeah. I mean, more than likely they're probably gonna limit snaps a little bit, probably about 20, 25 snaps for each one, I would imagine. So they probably won't throw them in there, into the deep end too much, but yeah, they had to shore up those A gap runs there, like right there in the middle. They were just getting eaten alive. And whenever you have a guy like Jordan Davis that goes out and leaves that void, I mean, it's tough to replace that kind of production there. Now, especially with that defense, like Jason said, they do run a 5-2 front, so they like to line up over the center a lot of the times, and that's where you have, those big guys there that eat up those A gap runs, and you hit those double teams and allow those linebackers and other players to get up there and attack. And especially with the way that they run their secondary, with Gannon there, they're very secondary focused, in what they do. So it's I think they're good moves, good players still. Obviously, they're still productive. Even going into last year, they're productive in the playoffs. So it definitely good moves. And once again, Howie Roseman, I mean, he just continually hits the mark all season long. And I think both guys will end up giving them some good reps this week.
Yeah, man, absolutely. I'm questionable about the move. Whenever someone gets Ndamukong Suh, it's definitely a question in the air. Is how is he going to impact the game, and just him being in general, just him being on the field, I feel like is a presence alone because he can just take over at any moment. So it's still a huge question mark. He is up there with age, but it is what it is. At the end of the day, he's still Ndamukong Suh. But like I said, it's not a loss move. It's like a win situation because you got depth, and that's what you needed to replace Davis. So that's what you want to do, especially for the Eagles. So it's a good move on their side. They understand the struggles of what they have going on with Davis being gone. They went to go attack it. So I mean, I love the aggressiveness that Howie got over there for you guys. Another move you guys did recently, the best former wide receiver for the Tennessee Titans in his history. That's what he stated. AJ Brown's over there wreaking havoc, and he's going to come back to face the Indianapolis Colts. What is your expectations for AJ Brown in this upcoming? Because he's not playing any slouches. He got to go up against Stephon Gilmore, and I'm pretty sure Isaiah Rogers Senior is probably going to line up on the side eventually as well. Because AJ Brown is a pretty decent threat. We got history with it. So how do you feel about that matchup?
You're asking me or Landon?
Yeah, Jason.
Okay. Well, I know that AJ Brown's probably conjuring up some bad memories for for Colts fans. Certainly, there's some bad blood there, and some times that he's hurt the Colts for sure in the past. What's interesting, I think, about the way that the Eagles have used him is he's not a primary focus for their offense. I mean, they're running a lot of the RPO style offense, and all the credit to Jalen Hurts. I mean, I've been critical of him in the past when I feel it was necessary, but he's really shown me a lot this year, and he's running this RPO offense where he's smart and he's making these calls at the line and he's taking basically what the defense is giving. So if they're going to roll coverage over to AJ Brown, he's probably not going to have a big day because Hertz is going to take advantage of Devonta Smith and Quez Watkins and some of the other weapons that the Eagles have, or he's going to switch into a run and he's going to gash until you bring somebody down into the box, and then he's going to roll over to AJ Brown. So he's really letting the defense dictate where the holes are, where the voids are, and he's attacking those voids. So really, to me, that's more of a question of how are the Colts going to defend the Eagles versus the game plan that the Eagles bring into the game.
We're gonna go to you, Landon. How do you feel about AJ Brown going into this week against the Colts?
Well, one, I'm just glad he's not in the division anymore. So we only get to play this guy. This probably be the one time in the next 4 years, I would imagine, as opposed to twice a year. So I'm definitely not missing him, seeing him that often. But he's a great player. You can't ever truly take away great players like that, even if the box score doesn't show what they're doing. The impact that they have on the defensive coverages in the game, that's what makes him so special, is you have to game plan around a guy like that. So I would expect them to try to isolate him a little bit more on Isaiah Rodgers, just because the size difference there is, it's not small. So he's a guy too that if he does have single coverage, you can always just throw it up and trust him to go get that ball and stuff like that. But I think Jason made a great point with the way that they're attacking teams this week, or not this. I just saw that post that this year. The way they're attacking teams this year is they're very multiple in what they want to do. So it's they attack the middle of the field extremely well. Jalen Hurts I've always been a massive fan of Jalen Hurts, even going back to his Alabama days. I love the mentality he brings and the leadership that he brings, and just I always bet on guys that have that kind of mentality. That every time he's counted out, he's going to step up and improve. And this year is no different than what I expected from him. Well, I can't say that. I didn't expect him to be at this level yet. I thought this might be possibly next year. But yeah, he improves every year by pretty substantial leaps. So super excited about that. And it's going to be a tough day, man. But AJ Brown, even if they might hold him to a few catches, and stuff like that. Even if he's not the primary focus of the game plan, he will be a primary focus for the defense, and he will dictate what the Colts do over there on that side of the ball.
Yeah, for sure, man. AJ Brown again. We loved when the Eagles made that move to go get him, because it was just a sigh of relief and a breath of fresh air. JC, you've been around Colts fans for a
sure.
pretty long time, so
Yep.
Once we got that news, it was like a breath of fresh air and a dawn of light. So, again, shout out to the Tennessee Titans for getting rid of them. But again, he's been having himself a pretty decent season, man. Because there was questions going in this year for the Eagles, how they were going to look with all these moves, because the last dream team you guys had kind of much fell flat in their face.
Yep.
But this team has been pretty good, man. They've been playing some pretty good football. There's still a lot of time left. You guys can bounce back easily from this game, but for sure it's going to be a good one. AJ Brown's going to be a threat regardless of the situation, so I wouldn't take that lightly. But with Gus Bradley and this defense, they've been top 5 for a very long time this year. They've been playing some pretty good football. And if there's any side of the Colts team that I'm not worrying about really, is the defense, because they've been playing pretty solid defense for sure. Moving on, you guys both mentioned Jalen Hurts. He's making a big improvement this year, and I don't think he gets enough credit for the improvement he's made this season from last year for sure. So we're going to start with Jason right now. How do you feel about Jalen Hurts this year, and what did you see him improve from your eyes?
Well, I mean, I alluded to it earlier with the question about AJ Brown, but I'm blown away, much like Landon has been, about his development into this season. Last year, Nick Sirianni, a name that you guys are more than familiar with,
Yeah.
he had a passing dominant offense that he tried to bring into Philadelphia, and Jalen just could not handle it. And about 6, 7 games into the season, they had a losing record. It wasn't going well. And to Nick's credit, he said, we got to switch this out. And they went to a run heavy, offense, and it got them into the playoffs. They went on a bit of a run, and in the offseason, you saw the moves. They brought in AJ Brown. They really loaded up on passing weapons, and people were, skeptical. Well, he can't throw. And I'm thinking the owner's not spending that kind of money and spending that kind of draft capital to not throw the ball. I mean, Jeffrey Lurie, the owner of the Eagles, has always been a pass first philosophy type of owner. And it was like, this was going to be a put up or shut up year for Jalen. I mean, he's going to have to throw it and show that he can do it, or he's not. And he's done it in spades for sure. I think, you got to give him credit, because not only is he making the throws accurately and handling the pressure, but he's running, I feel, a very complex offense, because there's a lot of diagnosis that he's got to do when he comes up to the line to know, is he going to hand it off? Is he going to run an option? Is he going to pass? And that surely that keeps the defense on their heels, but he's also got to have it between the ears to figure all that out quickly. And he's shown, an exceptional ability to do that. And I think really his mentality and his mental processing of the game deserves even more credit than his physical athletic attributes. I mean, that's what gets all the media attention, but they're not where they're at right now if he's not processing at the level that he's processing at right now.
Yeah, for sure. Absolutely. Landon, you got anything to say about that?
Yeah, well, I agree with all those points, and like you were saying, like it's very complex, and we even saw Matt Ryan struggle with this even some this week. Running kind of some of these RPOs where you're having to read that conflict defender, and you're not necessarily used to running that type of offense. It's something that he's really grown into, man. Like he's so impressive in the way that he attacks. Yeah, definitely.
Definitely.
But to me, the most impressive thing to me is his footwork and his base that's improved. I mean, he's the way he sets, consistently, like he stays within the hallway of his reads. His feet are always like there's no wasted motion whenever, he's not, toe stepping and stutter stepping and stuff like that back there. And you're seeing a lot of that impacted by how accurate he's been able to push the ball, especially down the field. It's really impressive. And I think the biggest change for me from this year, from last year, outside of that, is what a lot of young mobile quarterbacks struggle to do. And that's whenever they do kind of take off and, once the play breaks down and they take off and they look to run, he's keeping his eyes down the field and he still looks to throw.
Yep.
And that's a big improvement in a young quarterback's development now, because you have the weapons on the outside and, they're in the slot and stuff like that, which I know Dallas Goedert is out this week. So that could be a big thing. But, his ability now to keep his eyes downfield and still look to pass, knowing that if there's still nothing available, he always has that in his bag that he can just take off and go. And that's been a fantastic development for a guy like that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, man, absolutely. The improvements from Jalen Hurts is definitely something worth watching for sure, because in that division it was wide open, and I think it was just his perfect opportunity to develop and get better this year with all the weapons he got and that star-studded defense they got as well. We mentioned AJ Brown, but that defense that they got now is definitely really, really good. You got one of those guys, a ball hawk in Johnson. You got Darius Slay, who happens to be a beast as well. Man, this defense for sure has definitely been raising a lot of eyebrows for the Eagles. I know they don't get a lot of credit as well, because the Colts defense is pretty good too. But moving forward, we do have a question that we can go ahead and just go ahead straight into it. What do you think the Colts have to do to beat the Eagles? Landon, I'm going to go ahead and start with you first.
Really, it's simple. It seems to be like the crux of every week, and we even saw it rear its head in the Raiders game. Turnovers. You cannot turn the ball over and give this offense and this team multiple chances, because they don't beat themselves a lot. Like they're very disciplined in what they do, and they will make you pay if you turn the ball over, especially in the red zone. You cannot give them the ball with a short field, because it's so hard to stop mobile quarterbacks like Jalen Hurts that have that ability. once you get down into the red zone, because you're always like, with statue quarterbacks like Matt Ryan, you're really playing into like, you're playing into more of like the system. Like everything has to be perfect, for everything to be executed, and there's no ability to, I know we make the joke with last week when we saw him take off for 40 yards and like, yeah, it's all funny, but at the same time, man, like he can't make plays happen outside of structure. And Jalen Hurts, that's where it's so different, where the structure breaks down, and especially, you're having to guard with Matt Ryan. It's 10 on 11. So they have 11, you have 10. Jalen Hurts, it's 11 on 11. Like you can't, and it's so hard to play man coverage against a guy like that, because once you turn your back and, boom, he's gone. So luckily the Colts have really great linebackers, and I think they're going to be a big part of what this defense is able to do in this game. But yeah, just limit turnovers. Like you cannot turn the ball over in this game. You will lose.
All right. So, fortunately, we're going to have to go to you, Jason. But what do we have to do to beat your team, the Philadelphia Eagles?
I'll give you the blueprint for sure. I think Washington already gave the league the blueprint a little bit, but basically what I would do, where I Jeff Saturday, I'd run a game plan that was heavily ball controlled. I'd stick Jonathan Taylor up in the line every chance I got until one of these new guys that just came in this week off the street can prove that they can shut the run game down. I'd get into third and short and third and manageable as often as I possibly can, and I'd take advantage of like short to intermediate routes when I'm throwing the ball. I would not be going deep. I would not be, trying to throw bombs or long crossing patterns. I mean, that's basically what Washington did in that game. They took the short nickel and dime route right down the field. They punched it in every time they had the opportunity to, and they managed the game to keep. I mean, they owned the time of possession in a very lopsided way in that game, and they figured out. I think Ron Rivera was asked after the game, like, because every team that had faced the Eagles prior had struggled to like, how are we going to stop Jalen Hurts? And Ron Rivera said, we stopped him by keeping the ball out of his hands. And that's basically what I think. Where I Jeff Saturday, that's going to be my game plan. I'm going to control the clock, the time of possession. I'm going to run it until they prove they can stop it. When I have to throw, I'm going to hopefully, like I said, being just short, third and manageable, and just get the short routes, get the ball out of my hands quickly, and that's the approach. I mean, that's the blueprint that now Washington's given the league, and time will tell if the additions of Linval, Joseph, and Sue will help to slow down that plotting, grind down the run approach. But it sure looked pretty good for Washington on Monday, and I would be shocked if Indianapolis doesn't try to replicate that out of the gate on Sunday.
Yeah, for sure. It's a short week for you guys. Definitely got to take advantage of that situation as well.
Yep.
Jonathan Taylor, huh?
I'm sorry. I was just gonna say, like, I saw something earlier today too. Like, I think Matt Ryan averages 6.8 yards per attempt, and when it comes to under 7 yards per attempt against the Eagles defense, they actually rank 23rd in EPA in the league on defense.
Yep.
So they are because of how Gannon focuses that defensive backfield, and they're very forward thinking and not giving up the big play. Like they will limit explosive plays at, you can nickel and dime them down the field. So you have to get in, like Jason said, third and manageables. You can't be put in third and long in, those situations.
That's one of the things, from a Philadelphia perspective, the fans here have been hot about, which is they play a lot of zone coverages and they give a very wide cushion. So if you watch our corners, they're 7-8 yards off the ball when you snap the ball. So anything at 5 yards, 5-ish yards is going to be automatically there because the cornerback's already gifted that to the receiver off the line. Now, like I just said, when you combine that with, even if Taylor gets 3 yards a carry and you get to 3rd and 4, that's easy money. Somebody's open because they're cushioning every play and they're giving you that cushion to, like you said, Landon, to avoid the explosive plays, which is great, but they still score. They still go down the field and they still score. So let's get up on the line. Let's get in the guy's face a little bit and make them earn those intermediate routes versus just giving them to them.
Yeah, Colts fans have really kind of lived that for the last few years with Matt Eberflus and the way that his defense. So yeah, I know you're probably bringing back scars for Colts fans talking about receivers 7-8 yards, off the wide receivers.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. Definitely, it's going to be a good game for sure. We mentioned Jonathan Taylor. He had a very, coming out party last week. So, him bouncing back and, continue hitting his stride, especially against this Eagle team that has been struggling on the run. I think it'd be a good thing. Let's go ahead and hop into another segment. We're going to go offense and defense. We're going to start with defense. Who are two key players you're looking for on the Eagles side to have a pretty decent game, Jason?
Oh, wow. That's a good question. Well, I would say I'm going to combine two, and I'm
Yeah.
going to talk about what's the two guys that we just mentioned, which are the two guys they signed within the
hmm
last couple of days. If either one of those guys can give you any kind of real sizable contribution, it changes the whole dynamic of how that defense is played. And then second, I mean, I won't harp on that because we've covered that pretty in depth already. The second guy I would say would be TJ Edwards, who's the middle linebacker for the Eagles. And I tell you, they play that 5-2 front, and he's got to control the middle. So when that front is penetrable, let's just say, he's got to do the cleaning up. And he's been, I would say, lackluster in his tackling technique. So when he's making contact with a guy 2 yards deep in the hole, he's letting the guy drag him for another two, which, a 2-yard run versus a 4-yard run is a big difference. And that's what they're giving up. So he's got to improve that part of his technique, and he's got to make clean tackles when they're getting through that front. And he's not done it. So having some kind of consistency at the line, at the nose tackle position, and then having a middle linebacker that can tackle on contact, I think it's going to be pivotal for the defensive front for the Eagles.
Good, good, good. All right, Landon, we're gonna go to you. We're gonna go with the Colts for you, though. Who are two key guys on the defensive side that need to have a big game for the Colts?
So for me, first off, I'm actually going to say Dio Odangbo,
Mm,
because there's a very good shot that Quiddy Pay is out this week. He's not going to be able to play, and they're more than likely going to move Buckner to the outside there, which leaves Dio to take over that three technique role. Obviously, with Buckner, we know what he's going to bring you. We know what Big Grove's going to do there in the middle as well, Grover Stewart. So you need somebody on that other side to take on that offensive line. The Eagles have a very, very good offensive line. So this is going to be a chance for Dio to really step up and show what he's made of in this game, because we've seen over the last few weeks, whenever Quiddy Pay was out, this team did not look the same, on the defensive line, stopping the run or anything like that. So that's a guy I'm really focused on. And then Bobby Okereke. I think he could play a big role possibly with his range and the way he's been playing, especially in coverage. Like, he's been fantastic in coverage. And he's going to have to play a big part in spying on Jalen Hurts in this game, making sure that he's not getting loose, damaging you with his legs, keeping him in the pocket, make him throw from the pocket, which he can still do and still beat you. But the more you're able to limit a guy like Jalen Hurts, the better your chances are for winning. So I think with his coverage and his ability to guard sideline to sideline, that's a guy that I'm looking forward to playing a big role in this game.
absolutely. Those are two good points for both of you guys. Definitely think a pass rush has to wake up if Cody Pay ain't playing because we mentioned it before. Like, the importance of Cody Pay being on the field is tremendous because whenever he is there, he just plays so well. He is, and it's unfortunate that he can't stay healthy because the dude is actually really good, and I would love to have him a whole season of what he can bring to help this pass rush, man, for sure. But you
Even in
guys
the run
definitely.
game, even in the run game, he's a big part of what they do in the run game, man.
Absolutely, absolutely, man. He doesn't get enough flowers for it too, though. But for sure, you land in, Jason when he has him always talking about the Colts. Zach Hicks, he praises him all the time as well. We just need Quiddy Pay healthy for sure. We're
Mm-hmm.
gonna go ahead and hop into the offensive side for both teams. Jason, we're gonna go with the Eagles. Who are two guys on the Eagles you're gonna be looking forward to in this matchup?
All right. Well, first of all, I'll start off with the obvious guy we already talked about, which is AJ Brown.
hmm
Um, I think whether or not he has a statistical impact on the game is pretty irrelevant to me, frankly, as an Eagles fan. The fact that he's going to draw the attention from the defense is where his impact is going to be felt. Whether he's a decoy, whether he's banged up, whatever it is, I think he's going to get attention big time when he's out on that field, and that frees up the other parts of their offense. So if he is covered, and he's double covered, that means somebody's open somewhere, and then it's up to Jalen to find that guy. But I think having the history that he has with the Colts, AJ Brown, I think that's probably in some guys' heads a little bit. I know you've got some newer free agents that probably don't have that same experience with him, but I'm sure he's going to be a big focal point in the meeting room this week. Know where number 11 is every time he's on the field. And so I think if the Eagles are smart, they leverage that. And the other guy I'll say is probably a bit of an unknown for people, but his name's Jack Stoll, and he's the backup tight end. We mentioned earlier that Dallas Goedert's out. Now, Jack Stoll hasn't really gotten a lot of playing time because Goddard's, he's a star player. Jack Stoll's more of a blocking type of a tight end. He's not, a pass catcher. But Dallas Goedert, actually, if you look like PFF grades pass blockers, he's one of the best blockers in the league from a tight end position. He can get it done. And so what I'm concerned about as an Eagle fan is the drop off in protection with him being out. Not so much, fantasy football people say, oh man, I'm not going to get my 5 catches for 85 yards and a touchdown this week. But the real impact of the game is he's a good blocker. And so all these RPOs that I talk about, that requires some time for those plays to develop. And if you got guys crashing down, if Buckner's coming in there hot because they didn't chip him or Stoll didn't get a big enough piece of them, that blows up all that RPO stuff because it didn't have enough time to develop. You can't run an option. You can't make a decision whether to hand off or not because the guy's in your kitchen immediately. So I think, Jack Stoll is a name that not a lot of people are familiar with yet, but he's going to have to show up and he's going to have to step into some big shoes on Sunday.
Interesting point. Yeah, Goddard is out. That is another thing. All right, Landon, we got for you on the offensive side. There's a lot of people. We can mention the whole team, but just give me 2 people on the Colts offense. That's going to be important.
All right. So for me, it's going to be the guy that's going to be possibly facing Linval Joseph or Ndamukong Suh, and that's going to be Ryan Kelly. Because they run that 5-2, they try to line up over the center. They try to get you in one-on-one blocks. They try to take away what the Colts like to do, and that's zone blocking. The Colts are a zone blocking scheme. They love running that inside zone, those double teams, and having those tackles and guards flare out to the linebackers. Whenever you run that type of a defense, it really kind of forces your hand and guys to, pick up guys one-on-one. And we've seen Ryan Kelly, for some of the year, he's kind of struggled a little bit with those one-on-one blocks. He's very, he's good at helping out and chipping guys and getting into that second level. But when he's asked to, really anchor down against these guys one-on-one, he seemed to have struggled a little bit. So he's a guy that I think is really going to be asked to step up in this game, make the proper protection calls, make the proper adjustments along that line, and try to drive these guys off the ball, because it's going to be a tall task. You're going to want to run the game, or you're going to want to run the football, but Washington's offensive line is very much of a road grading power, in your face. The Colts they're not that type of line. That's not the type of football they play. So it's a little bit of a different thing there. Another guy for me to step up, it's going to be the quarterback, man. It's going to be Matt Ryan. He's going to have to take what the defense gives him, which he does very well. It really fits into what he likes to do. But I'm curious if they make that adjustment. And he left some. Mameli Kai. He's got to play. He's got to play better. But that was Mike, wasn't it?
Yeah.
But yeah, Matt Ryan, you saw it some last week. He left some plays out there on the field, with some of the RPO stuff and the ability to attack and stuff like that, and try to attack them deep. He didn't really do, and they got away with a win. And that's really how you play into Philadelphia. He has to be efficient. He has to be accurate. You can't stick this guy into 3rd and longs and ask him to save you. So the quarterback and the center and the way that offensive line operates in this game, that's going to be the biggest key piece, because the wide receivers are they are very good at yards after catch. Paris Campbell's really stepped up. Michael Pittman, we've seen what he can do in yards after the catch on these crossers. Alec Pierce is a guy that, while he hasn't necessarily shown a lot, especially over the last few weeks as far as that, he does have the ability, with that speed and size and power that he has, he's an extremely fast dude. So he can get loose in the open field as well. So you're just going to have to give these guys the opportunity. Don't make crucial mistakes. Don't throw it into double coverage. Don't panic, in the pocket when that pocket collapses, which has gotten him into a lot of trouble this year. So yeah, those are my two guys I'm keying in on in this game.
Yeah, for sure. For my side, I'm gonna go with Kylan Granson and Alec Pierce. I think Kylan Granson's been having himself an amazing season so far. So if Granson can do any type of production that he had last week and the week before, I think that'd be a tremendous increase for not even the offense, for Matt Ryan in general, to just be a security blanket to throw it to. And for Alec Pierce, I think he needs to step up this game. He's been in a drought for a few weeks, but I think this game, especially against this defense with a lot of good talent on that secondary, I think if he can step up, I think that also helps Matt Ryan and somewhat to find people to get the ball out to. So I'm definitely looking forward to those guys. Mo Ali Cox, we just need him to block because we don't know what we're going to get out of him in general because he's been so iffy this year. Again, I think this is just going back to Mike because he didn't want him anyway, but he's definitely been iffy. But we're definitely going to need him to block on these runs for sure.
Yeah, he has struggled blocking too this year, man. He
Yeah.
has been thrown up so many times.
Yeah, I've seen those clips, especially from yourself, about the from Landon's clips that he posts on Twitter. You guys check them out. He definitely does good film. But Mo Ali Cox definitely has been getting exposed in that blocking game, man. It's really bad. It's really, really bad. We're going to go ahead and hop into the second to last topic. We're going to just talk about our former guy, Nick Sirianni. I think Nick Sirianni has been having himself an amazing year as a head coach for the Philadelphia Eagles. Definitely do miss him as the Indianapolis Colts. But Jason, how do you feel about Nick Sirianni and this year has he been as a head coach?
I mean, I don't think there's anybody that can argue he deserves to be in the coach of the year as a finalist anyway, in consideration, I should say. Since he's come to Philadelphia, I mean, he's really embraced the culture of the city. He's not only fostered a relationship with the players. He's fostered a relationship with the city and the fans. He's really, I mean, I'll be frank with you. I was skeptical of him coming in. I mean, he had that shaky press conference when he got hired, and he's talking about his systems, and it's like, boy, this doesn't look too good. He looked nervous. He looked really like unsure of himself, and I thought, boy, the city's going to eat this guy up because, Philadelphia's got. You may have heard, but we have a bit of a reputation for for chewing people up. And boy, has he shocked me. I mean, much like Jalen, there's parallels between the two of them. People counted them out, and boy, they delivered. And what I think is really great about Nick, and really any coach for that matter, is he's malleable. He adapts to his players. He accentuates what they do well. He doesn't come in and say, this is the way I run my system, and that's the way it's going to be. He says, what do you guys do well? And I'll cater a system around that. And I said that earlier. I mean, last year he had a passing dominant offense. It wasn't working. He gathered his coaches and he said, we got to scrap that whole playbook and we got to go down to the bare bones and find out what can we do with the talent that we have and with the way that Jalen's functioning right now. And to his credit, I mean, they made a playoff run. They're in the playoffs last year. So I don't think many people expected the Eagles to be in the playoffs last year, and all of a sudden there they were. So, I mean, I can't say enough about him. I love him. I think he's done a great job. But I'm a homer. I'm here to represent the Eagles. So, and they're 8-1. So, what am I going to say? He's done a terrible job. So,
right.
Of course, I'm happy with him. I'm interested to hear what you guys have to say.
Yeah, definitely happy for you. We're gonna let you go, Lando. How you feel about Nick over there in Philly, man?
Dude, I'm so happy for him, man. I really am because I did see a lot of the flack that he caught for that, initial press conference where he stuttered over his words and everybody's like, oh man, like, is this guy in over his head? And I did think it was like, I always thought he would make a head coach at some point. I did think it was a little bit early for him to get hired, but yeah, man, I'm super excited for him and the passion he brings. That's what sticks out to me is just how passionate he is, with the players and, with the way his coaches are. And, this is a guy, like, you'll see him, like, he holds so much emotion on the sideline. Like, he whenever things mess up, like, you'll see him, get into guys sometimes, and you'll see him, go after ref. That's one of the funniest things, watching him go after referees. He does it all the time. It's funny. But then also, whenever they have a good play, he's the first one over there on that sideline to celebrate with you. type of guy that players want to play for. And we saw it here. We saw, there's a lot of talk about, what he did in the offensive meetings, but he was really one of the main ones, if not the main one, to challenge Frank Reich in those meetings and say like, hey, this offensive game plan isn't working. Let's do something different. And, Frank really trusted him and his advice. And, we saw it pay dividends with multiple top 10 offenses, whenever he was here. Best years of Andrew Luck's career, whenever they were there. Phillip Rivers, everybody counted that guy out as dead.
Mm-hmm.
And he had a really strong year. So, yeah, there was no doubt in my mind he would succeed, just the type of person he is. I love to see him embrace the city. I love the way the fans have embraced him. I'm super happy for him. He deserves it almost more than anybody in football.
Yeah, man. Go ahead.
I was just going to add, what's really wild is when you look at when Nick was brought in, the leading candidate, according to the media anyway, we don't know what happens behind closed doors, but was Josh McDaniels. I mean, everyone thought the Eagles are going to hire Josh McDaniels, and then out of nowhere comes Nick Sirianni. Everybody in Philadelphia is like, who's Nick Sirianni? I never heard of this guy. And boy, thank God Jeffrey Lurie did his due diligence and hired the right guy, because boy, look at what's going on out in Las Vegas. I can't even imagine how that would play out in Philadelphia. Him being 2-7 and them having all the problems that they're having, that's bad enough, but they're in kind of a, softer environment out there in Las Vegas, and people are, they're all transplants. I don't think anybody really grew up as a Las Vegas Raiders fan, but being an Eagles fan is like generational. That's passed. I mean, it was passed down to me from my dad, and it was passed down to him from his dad. And so like people take it personally here, and that he wouldn't have made it through a season here if Josh McDaniels had been hired. I mean, that would have got really ugly really fast. So thank goodness that it went the direction that it did, and we got Nick, because he's, I mean, as Landon said, the fans love him, and rightfully so.
And not only that too, but like with your point with Lurie, the way he hired, like I've always respected the way he goes about his hiring processes, because you look at the franchise, they've had some of the best coaches in the history of football and what they do. Like even going all the way back to like Dick Vermeil, like years and years ago.
Mm-hmm.
Then Andy Reid, obviously, Doug Peterson, was a fantastic hire there for a while. Got them a Super Bowl, and then now you transition. Even Chip Kelly had some success there, and we don't really see college coaches generally come in and have success, and he had some success there, as well. So Jeffrey Lurie's always been a guy that he kind of marches to the beat of his own drum, and he's really strong in his conviction in what he believes in. And so to have that type of history whenever you do hire a head coach, it always does kind of make me believe like, okay, like, well, this team clearly knows what they're doing when it comes to that, because they have the history there.
Yeah, so we're going to go ahead and hop into the chat. Our guy Mike has a question. He said, how should the Eagles attack the Colts offensive line? Whichever one of you guys want to go first, feel free to attack it.
Stunts, twists.
Yeah, I think that's the best way to put it, huh? Just go ahead and throw a stunt out there.
Make them think.
Yeah. I mean, we do got Will Fries. He's coming in. How do you feel about Will going into this game, Landon?
I think he gained a lot of confidence last week. There was a few plays there where I think he had some work to do in the run game still a little bit, or not the run game, but in the pass protection game. Like, he had a couple rough reps, but I mean, like, that was his first like real main start where like he knows he's the guy. So now he knows, and that's one of the biggest things for young players, and like, not just quarterbacks, like for any young player, is to get that confidence and say like, hey, now I know I belong in this league. I can play in this league. Let's build off of that. So I was excited about what I saw from him. Like he was really strong. We saw that right side of the line with him and Braden constantly moving guys off the line of scrimmage. Like it was really impressive. So yeah, I like Will. Hopefully he does well. I think he's got something there, even if he can just be average, like he doesn't have to be anything special, but just play average football, mistake-free football, because there's a big difference between going from a guy like Matt Pryor was, which I know Jason's probably really familiar with.
Yeah, I'd love to see him this weekend. That would be great.
Actually would. That's another one. How he got over on us. I know you're real familiar with that guy. You can take it back if you want. Yeah. But there's a big difference going from Matt Pryor to average guard play. Like that's
Mhm.
that's the difference. Like from Matt Ryan going from Jalen Mayfield at left guard to Quentin Nelson at left guard, like
Right.
it's night and day. So yeah, I'm excited to see what Will does. I hope they build off of what they did last week.
I would just say
Absolutely.
too to the chat question about how should the offensive line for the Colts attack. I mean,
Mhm.
it kind of dovetails into my game plan that I gave earlier, which is I think they should be run dominant and really kind of nickel and dime and milk the clock and that kind of thing. And when you're doing that, by its very nature, you're bringing the attack. When the guys are run blocking, they're bringing the attack to the defensive line. They're the aggressor, and they know it coming out of the gate. Is at that snap, I'm going after this guy. And offensive linemen, they love that. And I know Jeff Saturday, being a former offensive lineman, loves that too. So I won't be surprised. I'll be put it this way. I'll be shocked if they don't do that, because having some young guys like Fries and experienced guys, you talked about giving them confidence. What gives a guy more confidence than blasting off the line and hitting somebody and making them pay versus getting rocked back on your heels or doing that kick step and hoping that guy doesn't get to your aging quarterback, before he gets the ball off. That's the last place I think the Colts want to be, is in long downs and trying to fend off a deep and hungry Eagles defensive. I mean, they got a good defensive line, and you give them 3rd and 10, 3rd and 12, and they pin their ears back and they're coming after Matt Ryan. Look out, because that's not a good spot for you guys. So,
Mm-mm.
yeah, that's exactly what I think they need to do, is be aggressive and let the guys take the attack to the defensive line versus being on their heels and getting rocked.
Absolutely, man.
I
I'm
believe you
so
guys
glad.
just added somebody too. I know that like last week was his first game. Was it Robert Quinn you guys added there?
Yeah, two weeks ago,
Yeah,
right
2 weeks
before
ago.
the trade
He's,
deadline.
he's
Yeah,
even going to be more comfortable now in that
Yeah.
defense.
yeah,
Still got Brandon Graham there.
yep.
Uh,
Hmm.
Josh
Hassan,
Sweat,
yeah,
Hassan Reddick.
Hassan
Yep,
Reddick was one of my favorite guys that I wish the Colts signed.
Yeah,
yep,
man.
I know he played at Temple and wanted to go back home. He's from that area, so
yeah.
that's always cool to see guys go back home. But yeah, man, that is a tough physical defensive line. Like the tackle.
What's so funny is if you look at the defensive line statistics, a lot of people will like isolate a guy and go, "Oh, look, he only has 3 sacks," and that's because they're so deep and they rotate so
It's
frequently. So your
always
offensive line's
fresh.
always facing somebody fresh and somebody hungry to get home. And so yeah, their individual stats aren't going to look impressive, but as an ensemble, as a unit, I don't want to face that team.
They're tough, man.
Yeah.
Bernard Ryman's going to have a big tough test too, like because the biggest part for him and like where he still needs to grow is his play strength, because I think his athleticism is fantastic. I think he has decent technique. I'd love to see him use his hands a little bit better, but his play strength and his ability to get driven back is still kind of worrisome when you're going up against a guy like Brandon Graham, who's like that's his bread, like he's will put you on your ass. That's going to be a big week of growth from him. We're gonna need to see some good growth there.
Right.
Yeah.
And you talked about stunts too. So that's the big thing about having a bona fide nose tackle, because in recent weeks with Jordan Davis going down, they've had to move either Javon Hargrave or Fletcher Cox down into that nose position, which is not natural for them. They're pass rushers, but they get those guys outside out of that A gap position. They can stunt into your tackle, and then that frees up your defensive end or your outside linebacker to come free, and then it's a jailbreak. You know what I mean? So that's the kind of schematic thing that they can do if they've got consistency at the nose. What really has broken them down in recent weeks is that nose has just been missing, and they don't have a guy big enough or physical enough to eat up those blocks in the center of the front.
Good points, man. That's good points. I'm so glad I got you two guys on the show. I wish Mike was here, man, too, because we'll be here all day talking. But I definitely enjoyed this podcast. I'm pretty sure these guys that's here live, we appreciate everyone that tuned in, post stream as well, like, comment, and subscribe. But we come to the end of the podcast, and now it's time for the best part, the score predictions. So we're going to go with Eagles' own Jason. Let us know what the score is going to be here for this game.
Well, I'm not going to come on here and predict an Eagles loss. I mean, I'm sorry, but that's just not going to happen. But I'm not going to predict a blowout for sure. I think, like I said, I think Washington gave the league a bit of a blueprint. I think the Colts are going to be more than happy to take that blueprint and try to use it. I do think that the Eagles got a little bit embarrassed and they want to kind of redeem themselves a little bit. I'm going to predict a score of 23-17 Eagles.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I'm not gonna have Jason on here and predict the Eagles' loss either. So, I'm gonna take the Eagles as well in this one. I do think it's gonna be a closer game though than what people think. I'm gonna go. Let's see. I'm gonna go 27-20 Philadelphia.
Okay. I'm gonna be the odd guy here. I'm gonna go with Jonathan Taylor leading the fort, and I'm gonna go with the Colts victory. I'm gonna go 27. No, I'm going to go 24-21. I don't see us getting 27 points. That's just crazy. So 24-21, Colts win, just like how D-Knight said. But I do think Jonathan Taylor can have himself big game that we need for sure, especially us being at home. I think that's kind of like an advantage too. So definitely think this is going to be a good game. Once again, Jason, appreciate you for joining the show, giving us all your insight on the Eagles. Much appreciated. Thank you, Landon, for joining again. Mike couldn't be here. It's unfortunate, but we're going to have to go ahead and get up out of here. I know there's a Packers and Titans game. Rolling the dice, hoping the Packers can go ahead and get this W. I seen Watson already scored a touchdown, so I'm happy about that. But we're going to go ahead and get up out of here. Appreciate everyone for tuning in. Subscribe if you haven't, like, and hit the comment button as well. And we are out.